I could eat this every day of the week. Probably be like 500 pounds, but fuck it, I'd be happy, right? Alright guys, welcome back to another edition of Cooking with Satch. This week we're going to whip up my favorite, a little southern fried chicken. Make it all the time, it's delicious. And the way I like to do it is I like to start with a full chicken. I like to break it down myself. So as you can see, we got this full chicken here, free range, organic from Whole Foods. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to section it off into 8 pieces, so when we fry it we get the perfect cut. You can buy it pre-cut, but come on man, we like to do things a little extra here, you know this by now. So, first things first, I'm going to start by taking off this wing. I'm just going to isolate that joint there, and I'm going to cut all the cartilage and flesh around it so that I can expose the socket. And that socket's right there, I'm just going to pop it out. Easier said than done sometimes. And remove the rest of the meat. Cool. So we got it off just like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Get it going. Pop it out. Alright, there we go. We're gonna go ahead and just cut off the tips here because they don't really do anything. It's not gonna hurt you or anything, but you do want to get rid of them. Take that, throw it out. Just use the back of my knife to break it off, just like so. Boom. Take it off, let it go. Got my 2 wings chilling right here. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and remove the hindquarters. So we're going to go for the thighs and the drumstick, my favorite part, the dark meat. Great for frying, delicious, juicy, tender, and same thing. We're going to start with that joint there, and we're just going to follow it all the way down the back. And it should come off very easily once we get there. There we go, see? Boom. Beautiful hindquarter right there. There's leg 1. Get this one going over here. Same exact process. Cut through the skin. And see, it even opens up just by me cutting the skin there like that. Nice and easy. This side too. Again, when I get to that joint, just comes through nice and easily. Cool, so now that we got these hindquarters out, I'm gonna go ahead and remove the thigh from the drumstick. So there's a natural seam right there. I'm just gonna follow that all the way through. Same way I did on the hip joint, I'm just doing it again now to get rid of this beautiful drumette. And we are left with a beautiful chicken thigh. And we want to make sure that we keep the skin as intact as possible, because that's really going to help us get that crunch on the fry. There's a lot of flavor in that skin, a lot of fat, a lot of good stuff to cook, and we don't want it to go to waste even if it just ends up getting injured, you know what I mean? Sometimes it will curl up a little bit and it'll be at a ball at the bottom. And yeah, so you just got to be something that you should be aware of as you're going through and butchering your chicken. There we go. Alright. So there we go. We already got our extremities good to go. Let's go ahead and take these breasts off. So what you're gonna do is there's a breastplate right here, a little bone. I'm just gonna trace that to one side and the other. So see, I just went to one side, this time I went to the right, and I'm just gonna follow that breastbone all the way down. And again, this way, when I go to cook it, there's not gonna be a bone in there. Some people like to leave the bone in, others don't. I personally like just a nice chicken breast. There you go, like the bodybuilders eat, right? Boom. Beautiful chicken breast, you got the tender at the bottom. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this in half because I want this to be 2 portions. So by the time we're done, this is gonna be an 8-piece fried chicken. Boom. There we go. Same thing on the other side. Alright. Go ahead, cut this in half again, just like we did on the other side. So we have 4 breast portions all together. And don't go wasting this chicken. I know there's a lot of good meat on there. It looks kind of gross right now, but what I like to do is make a stock or soup out of it. So I'm gonna take my beautiful Le Creuset, courtesies of my homies, Brandon Scott, Brett Deemer, Bradley Burkhardt, and Jimmy. And I'm gonna go ahead and just throw the chicken carcass in there. And I'm gonna heat that up. I'm gonna like simmer it for probably somewhere around like 12 hours with some vegetables. And I'll figure out what I'm gonna do with that later. So as you can see here, I have portioned out a beautifully cut chicken. And we're gonna get ready to go ahead and dip that in the brine. Alright, so we went ahead and let this chicken brine for about 12 hours. It's looking really good, and as you can see here, it's already looking different. So it's a lot whiter, a lot clearer. We sucked out a lot of those toxins. We also seasoned it from the inside out. It's gonna make it a lot juicier and a lot more flavorful when we go and fry it. So now that this is going, I got my oil heating up, and I'm gonna have my oil heat up to 350 degrees, and that's what we want to cook it in, is 350 degree oil. That's kind of the perfect temperature to get that crust done on the outside and keep that inside nice and juicy. So I'm going to keep watching this and watch it to 350. Remember, when you add the chicken, the temperature is going to go down a little bit, and if it gets too high, the best way to cool it down is by adding a little bit of oil to the batch. So we're going to go ahead and keep watching this. Right now it's at about 150, rising up fast. So I'm gonna go ahead and dredge my chicken while that's heating up. First thing I'm gonna do is just take it, I'm gonna dunk it in the flour, and I always make sure to season my flour because that's how you're gonna know that you're getting the most out of your chicken. And what I like to do is throw a little salt, a little pepper, a little cayenne, maybe a little garlic powder, just your favorite blend of herbs and spices that you think would go well with it. You know, take some freedom, take some liberties with that one. Go ahead and do what works for you. But definitely throw a little something in there just to give it a little pep in its step, you know? And I'm just getting this nice and evenly coated. And the reason I'm dredging it first is because I really want to make sure the chicken gets all dried off before I dunk it in the buttermilk. And that's going to help the buttermilk stick to it. I also made sure to let this chicken come to room temperature before I cook it, because it's going to cook a lot better that way. Alright, so we got it all dredged now, sitting in the flour there, and I'm gonna go ahead and dunk it in the buttermilk. I always want to be cognizant or aware that I'm using one work hand and one clean hand. So I always like to try to keep one hand clean, especially when I'm working with chicken, just for safety reasons. So I'm gonna take the dredged mix, I'm gonna dip it in the buttermilk, make sure it gets evenly coated. I'm just gonna let it all kind of sit in there for a second while I'm getting it going. Check my oil real fast. Looks like we're up to about 206, 210. Like I said, I'm getting this at 325, so that's how high we're going with that. Alright, make sure that all the chicken is evenly coated with the buttermilk, just like it was evenly coated with the flour. One clean hand, still keeping this hand clean. It's easier said than done, you gotta be careful with it, but go for it, man. Alright, there's a lot of vinegar in the buttermilk and acidity, and that's what's really gonna help this cook and give it a nice flavor to it. Alright, so I'm gonna take this back, I'm gonna drop it in the flour, get that even coating, and this is really where our breading magic is happening right here. Keep an eye on the oil. We're up to about 350, let it keep rising. Sorry, 250, we're going for 325. Seemed high, as I was saying it. Still got one clean hand. Doing something right at least. Alright. Like I said before, you gotta make sure that everything really gets coated evenly. That's gonna make sure that this cooks perfectly when you go to cook it. Go ahead and wash my hands off a little bit. They're getting a little messy there. A little bit more messy than I like them to be. I'm gonna go ahead and finish this off. And it helps to have a big bowl here, like I do, because then you can really spread the chicken out and make sure it gets dry. As opposed to if you're doing things like in a too compact matter, you're just not going to be able to evenly coat the chicken as well. Alright. So this is looking really good. Nice and dry. Let's check the oil. Alright, it's getting up there. We're at about 300. We got a little bit while to go. Keep mixing this in. I always like to make sure I clean up as I go. So I'm gonna, just because I know it's like getting right there, and I'm gonna go ahead and start dropping my chicken in. And I'm gonna start with the dark meat, because the dark meat's gonna take a little bit longer to cook, so I wanna get that going first. Oh yeah, and that's just going in there perfectly. So like I said, I'm gonna start with the drumette and the thigh. And I'm gonna let this cook for 4 minutes before I add anything else. So 2 minutes of that cook time, I'm not even gonna touch it. I'm literally just gonna let it do its thing for the first 2 minutes to make sure that breading gets fully cooked. And then after 2 minutes, I'm gonna start moving it around a little bit. So I'm just gonna be really careful. I'm gonna watch it, obviously keeping in mind, making sure that the temperature's right, and just making sure that nothing bad happens for the first 2 minutes especially. So it's been about 2 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and move this around just to make sure nothing's sticking there and make sure it's cooking evenly. So far it looks phenomenal. I got these really cool new saute tongs that I'm pretty stoked about. And we got 2 more minutes before we're gonna go ahead and flip it and add the rest of the chicken. Alright, so we're coming up on 4 minutes here for our first batch. I'm gonna go ahead and flip it, add the rest. I let the oil get a little bit hotter than 325 because once I add the rest of the chicken, it's gonna bring the temperature down. So that's something to always be aware of when you're adding and taking away, is you wanna maintain that average temperature at 325. So let's go ahead and add some of this in. Go ahead and start with the wing. Breast meat. Smells so good already. I'm gonna do one more breast piece in there as well. And like I said, you can see the temperature is already dropping. I'm gonna go ahead and flip my first 2 pieces of dark meat, and they're just looking spectacular right now. And we're gonna let the rest of this cook together for 7 minutes. So again, I'll probably flip the white meat pieces after about 3.5 or 4, and we're gonna have 7 minutes all together with both of them. All right, so our chicken's been cooking for 12 minutes now. I'm gonna go ahead and take it out, dark meat first, and I'm gonna let it rest on this baking rack. And the reason why I do that is because that's gonna help me keep it crispy until I'm ready to eat it. I always wanna let it cool down because again, that chicken's gonna continue to cook on the inside even though it's off the heat. And the baking rack is really gonna help it stay crispy. You never wanna just put this in a flat surface because all that oil that we cooked it in is gonna come off and it's gonna get a little soggy. And if you're like me, which I think most people are, you really want that chicken to be nice and crispy when you bite into it. So we're gonna let this hang out here for about 5 minutes on the baking rack, come back, bite into it, see how we did. Let this cool down for about 5 minutes now. Should be perfect. Let's go ahead and give it a bite and see how we did. So I'm gonna start with my favorite piece, the drumstick. I mean, this looks phenomenal just by looking at it. You can even hear, you hear that? So crispy. See how we did. That's amazing. Perfectly crispy on the outside, nice and juicy in the middle. You really taste the herbs and the salt from the brine. So be careful what you want to put in there. A little bit of lemon, a little bit of honey. Whatever you want to use for your brine is really going to come through when you cook it. Great, it's phenomenal. Man, you guys are missing out right now. You guys in LA, swing by. I'll make you a batch. This is definitely my go-to. This is my signature right here.